Two worlds, one destiny. The story of an adaptive alien invasion. Can one man save an entire planet from alien invaders? And who are these shape-shifting aliens? All of this you will find out in the story. This story begins when my brother and I were walking home on a dark and quiet street. On the way home, I noticed a light coming from under a car, and then something strange came out and turned into a beautiful bench near the entrance. I couldn't believe my eyes, and I told my brother, "Look, there's something turned into a bench," but that was a mistake. The creature immediately reacted to this phrase and took the form of a large and strong man. After the transformation was complete, it immediately began to approach us. My brother, sensing the danger, took my hand and we quickly ran toward our entrance. We barely had time to run inside and close the door. The creature approached it and tried to open it. But it wouldn't break it down. While this monster was looking for a way to get in, my brother and I went up to the second floor to the door of our apartment. As we approached it, we turned around and saw the man who had been watching us in the window between floors. When we entered the apartment, my brother went straight to his room to pack his things, and I started calling my mother and asking where her new suitor was. After all, he worked for some secret service. She decided to find out what happened. I began to tell everything that happened, and after finishing the story about this situation, she did not believe me and asked me to give the phone to my brother, but he was sitting on the bed with a bag at his feet and was in shock from what he saw, and could not say anything to my mother. After that, she hung up the phone thinking we were playing a joke on her. The next day, I was walking alone on the same route during daylight hours. When I saw the creature under the same car again, I called out to the man standing next to me and asked him to leave, showing him the grenade. I didn't know where it came from. As soon as he moved away, I threw the grenade under the car, hoping to destroy the creature. However, the result was not the same. The grenade landed next to the car, but it was enough to wound the creature and flip the car over. In the same instant, it took the form of a meter-long scorpion and chased after me. While running away from the crippled scorpion, I happened to notice its counterpart, which was turning into a trash can. As soon as the crippled creature approached its counterpart, it took the form of a bear and started chasing me as well. I began to run faster, but the distance to me began to shrink despite my best efforts. As I lost hope, I saw a small cave in a mountain of earth in the area between the houses. I thought they couldn't fit through it, so I ran at full speed toward the cave. But it wasn't a cave at all. Once inside, there was no limit to my surprise. Some kind of inhuman technology was inside this cave. Advancing further, I fell into the abyss and was falling without feeling the bottom or the walls. At some point, I felt a pull, as if something was pulling me in. Suddenly, my eyes went dark, and after a couple of seconds, I woke up. Looking around, I saw the reflection of a girl. After a couple more seconds, unfamiliar images around me appeared. One of those images was a news report that said that this very girl was missing. It was said that a girl of 17 was missing after blowing up a car with a grenade she had stolen from her mom's boyfriend. After a thorough investigation, an unknown substance and fragments of unknown origin were found at the scene of the explosion. And it was also said that the case was linked to other missing persons cases. Suddenly the images stopped. They were probably shards of the future, or the past. And then I realized that all this time I had not been in control of my body, but had been a spectator to the whole situation. And now, the control had passed to me. After a few seconds, I began to feel movement in my legs. As I looked, I saw small particles that enveloped my legs and gradually moved further. They were cold and hard like metal. They were nanoparticles that made some sort of suit. After they finished making this suit, I saw other people wearing the same clothes. After a couple minutes, the displacement ended and something connected to me from the back. At the same moment, various information began to flow into my head. As it turned out, these creatures were called Adaptus, and they wanted to settle on Earth. When I realized this, I tried to get through to this girl. But to no avail. I began to remember that in that image she was called Lakira, after saying her name a few times. I felt my control disappear and Lakira regained consciousness. To keep her from panicking, I immediately began to explain the situation to her. Surprisingly, she was calm and reasonable. We began to think about how we could free ourselves. Now, our minds were working together. At some point, the synchron disconnected from us. That's what they called it, a device that synchronizes the user's thoughts and feelings with Adaptus, creating an empathic connection and transferring control over the body. Lakira and I realized that instead of Adaptus consciousness, the synchron had connected my consciousness, but she still had control. After disconnecting it, the nanoparticles reported the transfer of control to Lakira's user. After realizing the situation, we immediately left the capsule we had been in all this time. After leaving the capsule, I woke up in my bed. It turned out that it had all happened in a dream. When I fell asleep again, I found myself synchronized with Lakira's mind. She told me briefly what had happened. She said that as soon as we left the capsule, I disappeared and didn't respond. Lakira didn't hesitate and went to release the other people from the pods, immediately bringing them up to speed. Since she had interrupted the synchronization process, all the people knew the information about the Adaptus, but had not lost control. She also said it had been hours since I'd gone missing. For me, though, it hadn't been more than a minute. When I returned to sleep, I remembered that I was wearing the same nanoparticle suit that Lakira was wearing in reality. Perhaps I was one of the people the Adaptus wanted to subjugate. Having said all that, we continued the rebellion on the invaders' base. Using their own technology, we hacked into their systems and found more and more technology we could use. At one point, we found transformation technology and began to study it, in order to figure out the Adaptus in disguise. Later, we all learned how to use reflection. It was a technology that allowed us to reflect and copy any shape or form of objects or creatures. Using reflection, we learned to impersonate the Adaptus. Since we didn't know much about them yet, our plan was to infiltrate the Adaptus and gather information about their plans, and then launch a large-scale attack on the remnants of the invaders on Earth. In order to rid our planet of them, at some point, I woke up again. Glancing at the calendar was 2028, I realized that Lakira was from the past. She was the unknown heroine who had prevented the first invasion of Earth in 2023. After getting ready to meet my friend Jack, we drove to the cave where Lakira fell into the abyss. We were archaeology students, so we had no trouble gaining access to the area where this cave was located. Once inside, and moving a little deeper, I warned Jack about the chasm. He was surprised, but he believed me and began to move more slowly, striking the floor and looking at everything with his flashlight. As we got closer to where Lakira had fallen, we heard strange noises. It was Adaptus. Jack shined his flashlight on it and Adaptus started to take the form of a scorpion, but it was damaged, so we started to move away, but at the same moment, it took the form of a snake and grabbed Jack. I tried to save him, but I couldn't, the snake was too strong. Hearing Jack's last words, "Run while he is dealing with me." I started to run away, and in a few seconds the last scream of my friend was heard. As I reached the exit, Adaptus caught up with me and pinned me against the wall. Just then a girl's voice sounded in my head. It was the same voice of Lakira. She told me to give her control of the suit, and without a second thought I did. At the same moment, Adaptus started squealing in pain and the girl ordered me to run. I quickly got into the car and drove off, while asking in parallel how this was possible. Lakira told me that it looked like my suit belonged to her, and when I came to the cave they synchronized through time. Asking how does she know that, she said it's been 2 years since you left my mind and people have learned a lot about the invaders. And she also told the story that about a year ago, she found strange information in the suit's archives. It told of 2 students, Jack and Mark, who went looking for some unnatural caves for a thesis assignment. And they found one in the area where Lakira had disappeared. But it was actually a different timeline, so she said, in which the invasion was not prevented and by 2040 the Adaptus had conquered the planet. She also said that for some unknown reason, my capsule malfunctioned during the transfer and my consciousness went to Lakira, which was the reason she was able to get out of the capsule. So in that timeline I'm in, asked her. Lakira couldn't answer that question because there wasn't enough data about that timeline. But because of that glitch, she was able to save me in the present and our planet. I found out another thing I was curious about. Namely, does she know about herself in the present? She decided not to answer that question, and warned me about the Adaptus that had killed Jack. She also said that if we kept going, we'd be saved. I didn't ask how she knew that and just pushed the gas to the floor. A minute later, a helicopter flew in to meet us and massacred Adaptus. Lakira had warned me that the suit was now under my full control, and I was protected from any mind-altering effects. And if the suit is removed against my will, it will self-destruct. After that, Lakira's voice fell silent, and the people who found me started asking me about the whole situation. Naturally, I couldn't tell them about Lakira, so I withheld her appearance and the connection to the past and told them about Jack. After we checked the cave, the Secret Service people decided to interrogate me. Then I warned them that the suit would self-destruct if anything was done to me against my will. Surprisingly, they backed off as if they knew it. After that, thanks to the eliminated Adaptus, other surviving invaders have been discovered, including in the orbits of planets not far from the sun of stars. And so ends our story. I am grateful to Lakira for her feat and for sharing her story with us. I don't know if we'll ever hear from her again, but she will stay with us forever. The Adaptus? What about them? We showed them we're not going down without a fight. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you again.